Your one, known as Trump, has been, in a sense, appointed. However, it is also in cooperation with the free will choice of the collective that has resided primarily in the United States. Now, let this be known, there are many, many beings out there who would like to perceive Trump or the other option, which in this point in time and space was your one known as Kamala Harris, would like to see one as good and one as bad, one as right as one is wrong, one is serving good, one is etc. And what we would say is here that they are both serving their egoic free will choice.
Hey everyone, I am thrilled to welcome this new special guest to you, Laurie Ann Spagna. Laurie is the best-selling author, spiritual catalyst, mentor, guide, intuitive, animal communicator, healer, multidimensional channel, light worker, visionary, and luminary. I'm super excited to welcome Laurie and introduce all the insights that she has to tell and share with you. Welcome to the Celeste Evolved podcast, Laurie.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about our time together today.
Laurie, tell us, how did you even get into this whole thing of channeling and all of these? How did you give birth to your psychic gifts and abilities? How did this happen for you? What's your story?
Well, the way that it started for me was that I was working in corporate America for the first, 15 years or so out of college, and I was miserable. I felt like I was enslaved to the system, and I developed very unhealthy behavioral patterns, and I got very unhealthy during that time, like excessive drinking, smoking, sexing, spending, just the whole thing. And I was going to doctors and they were pumping me up with massive amounts of pharmaceutical drugs. I was really overweight, and my thyroid was off. I couldn't stay up through the day. I couldn't get to sleep at night. Couldn't wake up. So, just everything was a mess, and I was so miserable and felt like I really couldn't get out. And I was like, I want out of here. Like, I don't have any other way. What happened was my brother died of an unexpected died of a drug overdose. And I started getting messages from him. And I didn't really know that I had that ability or that capacity. I knew that I was always very perceptive. Like, I knew that I was super perceptive. And I was a kid that everybody used to go to for advice, But I had to unpack that for about a year, right? I didn't really know if it was real or if I was just making it up at first. So it took about a year. His big message to me was like, you're on the same trajectory as me. Like, you need to change. Otherwise, you're going to end up just like me. And I took the message. I got it. So I quit my 6-figure corporate job and I became a dog trainer. And right away, I started hearing the dogs. And the dogs would say, you listen to us and we'll teach you. So I just became their student. And they started teaching me about how they're here to help animals, humans. And then I got from there, what ended up happening, just to, fast forward through the story, was I moved to Maui. I got into all the esoteric healing practices. I was just deep in it. And while I was living in Maui, practicing energy, I had what's called a near death. It's called a little death because it's not the same thing as a physical death, but the master energy worker that I was working with and learning from there, he knew how to activate the DMT in my brain with energy. That's how I understand it now, what happened. So for me, it was a near death. We can talk about that more. That changed everything. And right after that, I had what's called the first contact, which also changed everything. So within those 2 years in Maui, everything else was like, everything changed. All the pharmaceutical drugs I was on were gone. And I mean, just massive amounts, all the coffee, all the cigarettes, all the alcohol, all of it was gone. I switched to an all natural organic diet. I healed my thyroid. My hair stopped falling out. I dropped the weight. And that's when I started my own solopreneur business, as a spiritual healer, mentor, coach, and guide. And even after that, there were 20 more years plus since then of just still doing energy healing and energy work, healing traumas, resolving traumas, activating DNA, all that stuff that I know we'll talk about today.
Wow, beautiful. When you say that all of that stuff happened in the beginning. I feel like I'm in the beginning stages of all of that. And then it's like the more I learn, the more I feel like there's got to learn. And it's like a never ending quest. Do you feel the same way? Or has it ever been a point where you're like, okay, now I know everything. I don't need to learn anymore?
I love that question. It's such a good question. Oh my God. Here's the thing. We're living in an infinite reality with an infinite consciousness. So there is always more. And it's actually a sign to me, it's actually a sign of progress when you start realizing I know nothing. I know nothing compared to the infinite, all that is. That is the infinite potential that is available to all of us. So, no, I feel like I know nothing. However, what I have started to realize is two things. The trauma that took so long to heal, that's gone. I don't feel that I have trauma to heal anymore. I don't feel that I'm walking around carrying the various types of pain and suffering, fear, etc., that most humans are still working through, and that can be cleared. And then you start living in a new energetic plateau in a sense that really is all about service, because that's the fastest road to joy is real authentic service and contribution, and just helping others to come into new states of consciousness. The other thing you start living, the new plateau you start living at, I think that's true, is that you start to say, well, what else? How much greater can it get? Like, not from a place of dissatisfaction, but more from a place of, pioneering, exploration. Like, it's infinite. And we have so much. This is just so much incredible potential that we're not tapping into, because as a planetary body and species, as humanity, we just have barely begun to access that. So, I mean, that's exciting. That's what's ahead.
That's beautiful. I see your dog there. Very
Yeah.
cute. What's the name?
Her name is Emma, or Emma Shasta. She always does sort of show her a face for a little while when I'm doing interviews, and then she'll just settle down on my lap. Yeah.
She's so cute, Emma.
Yeah.
So you are an animal communicator too, right? Do you know what Emma is thinking right now?
You know what? Most of the time, animals, they're not thinking the way we are. So we
Oh,
tend to, and part of the human ancestry is that we are overutilizing our left analytical or reptilian brain. The non-human animals, who are like in the animal kingdom, they're more fully utilizing their right sensory brain. So they just have sensory awareness. Ah, this is the energy. Ah, this is what it feels like. Ah, there's a thought that went by. Ah, that energy of that thought is in my human's field. I'm going to absorb it to try to resolve it for them. Right. But they're not
oh,
thinking that. They're just in a state of awareness. And so even with Emma, like, her awareness is, oh, this is that time mommy's doing something she loves. It feels good to be with her, near her, on her. And she just comes and sits. It's like she has that awareness. And one of the best ways I can explain awareness is, even right now, if I say to you, you're aware that Australia exists, but you weren't thinking about it, but it's now you're suddenly aware of it. And all your awareness about that country, suddenly comes up the moment it's mentioned. It's like that. That's how they function. It's more from the states of awareness, and without necessarily judging anything as wrong or bad. It's like energy's just energy. So, like, the energy of stress, right? If their human has it, they will absorb that as empaths, to kind of take it on, to help alleviate that, or to hopefully be able to dissipate it. Or the energy of joy and excitement, or the energy of, peace and harmony. Like, they identify it all. They're really energetically conscious in that way.
wow. So that means that, like, when you say that they are just being aware of what's happening and being present, it seems like that's what we are all supposed to be doing. So are they of like a higher consciousness than us?
To some degree, yes. It depends on how you evaluate consciousness, right? Because our human society evaluates consciousness as the ability to rationally think, because we are, in a sense, wired up up to this time to overutilize our reptilian brain and the left analytical brain. That said, we are, as a species, becoming more energetically conscious and more energetically sensitive. And I have zero doubt that that is the future of our evolution, that we're going to be energetically aware, and that's going to become our new language in a sense. And that one of the things that I teach people and do my best to help people with is to help them to find their unique energy signature, because the energy signature that we are is based on the frequency that we are most aligned to or most comfortable with, that we enjoy the most, but it can always be up leveled. And when I say up leveled, I mean, in a sense, purified of what I would call densities. Again, densities are just some form of stress, anxiety, doubt, fear, worry, regret, remorse, shame, blame, victimhood, imposter syndrome, all those things we go through. And as those things get cleared, because they're not true, they're not those things, none of those things are true. They're just energy. So as they get cleared, the vibrational signature that we are becomes more and more aligned with the truth of who we are. What's the truth? We're magnificent. We are beings of light and consciousness, that we are aligned with the divinity of that source that we resonate with, which we could call God, but we could also call it the field. Right? The field is just all that is, right? The quantum field. We could call it Mother, Father. We know what, however we uniquely identify. It might be a religious figure for us. Either way, our vibrational signature is the energy that we are choosing to be and vibrating with it, like in harmony with, even if the energy is not harmonious, because stress signature is not harmonious. And you know, when you're talking to someone like that, right? And you're in their presence because you feel it, we're just becoming more conscious about all of it. And then we're getting the opportunity to choose who will we be.
So when you say you identify someone's unique energy signature, you mean like if some person is always thinking negative, you would identify that for them so that they can fix it? Is that how it is?
Hey guys, if you've been enjoying this video so far, please make sure to support this channel. You can either subscribe to the channel, leave a like or a comment, or even share it with your family and friends. Apparently, it helps with the algorithm and I have no idea how that works. Also, I'm sending out weekly love notes where I'm sharing with you my own personal spirituality journey, and also will keep you posted on the upcoming community events that we have. We have a lot lined up for you. We've got group channeling events, Akashic record reading events, and a lot of such community events that I think you're going to absolutely love. All you have to do is go to www.celestevolve.com/love notes. Now let's get back to the video.
Yeah. So our energy signature is comprised of, in a sense, the amalgamation of our entirety. So it includes, yes, what we're thinking, what we believe, what we perceive. That's through the mental plane, like our judgments, our opinions. And that's one of our multisensory, extrasensory bodies, extra multidimensional bodies. But our emotional body, which most humans are barely paying attention to, what are the emotions? That's part of it. And most emotions can be used as guidance for sure. Like anger tells you you're not in the right direction, right? Depression tells you you are totally misaligned. You're not facing the light. You're not facing your own highest self, right? I could go through them all. All the emotions can be guidance, but eventually the goal is to purify or to mature the emotional body. Doesn't mean you don't feel it, means that they're no longer governing you. They become just energetic states, right? But that's part of the energy signature. Also is the light. You've heard of auric readings, right?
Yeah.
Like getting your
Yeah.
aura read.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so with my extrasensory awareness, when I allow myself, I can see someone's light. So what is the light? And that's not done through my regular eyesight. That's done through my, what you can call your third eye or your extrasensory perception. I can see the light that they are. And once you have that capacity, and there's more to it, but those are the primary aspects. When you start understanding that you can see that, you start to realize you develop incredible divine discernment. You cannot be misled. You cannot be lied to, not in the same way. Certainly not. So you start living in a space of authentic truth and being the truth of who you are based on your own vibrational signature, based on the vibration of the energy that you want to be and experience. And then everything else is sort of like a reflection of light and consciousness. And are you choosing that or not? Right? It becomes the free will choice that we have to decide who and what we want to be and how we want to experience our lives in physicality, in the physical form.
That's interesting. There is this lady in my office who is also able to read people's energies. And I noticed that so I get excited when she's with me. So this is like totally new. When I started the podcast, I had no idea there would be anybody who would be psychic or have these abilities. But once I started the podcast, within my office, there was this lady who could channel light language. So it's very different. So what I do with her is whenever someone comes, I would ask her, "Hey, can you read her energy? Can you do that? Can you do this?" And I notice that whenever there's someone who is a little bit like sad, she becomes sad too. She becomes silent. So then I understand that it kind of affects her. So when you are able to, read people's energies, does it affect you? Because when you go out and you have to meet people, you have to talk to people, and you're always thinking, is this good? Like, you turn on your discernment. How does it affect you? It would be probably very difficult for you to make friends, I suppose. What is it like for you?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Good question. So, all right, because of the energetic like laws of entrainment, like they're laws of quantum science, right? Laws of entrainment and resonance. In a sense, if you hang out with someone who's in their density, whether it's depression, sadness, whatever, usually what happens is the one that's at the densest frequency rises to the one that's at the highest or purest frequency. That's law. However, if the one that's at the higher frequency isn't in mastery of their own energetic container, which most humans aren't, they will be affected by it. For me, I've been navigating that now for over, close to 20 years now. So I've learned, and I'm not masterful at this yet, but I am becoming more and more masterful at it through practice and discipline and application, that my choice and my will is to always be aligned with the energy of source in the purest frequencies that I can attune to. So I'm always actively engaged, almost always actively engaged in bringing forward that energy and clearing the field around me. And so that anyone who's in my field is being uplifted positively.
Wow.
It's a practice
Wow.
and it requires discipleship. It's not easy, but it is rewarding. And overall, as I've been developing it over the past, I would say I've been stepping into that intention, desire, and ability more and more specifically over the past like 3 years. I'm finding it to be so much better. And I am teaching it to others, as best as I can. Because again, I'm not in my full master. Like to me, a master is an ascended master, right? Jesus, Buddha, Allah, Krishna, they were all ascended masters. Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, they learned how to be in such a state of mastery that it was through their discipleship, through their discipline, that they were able to do it perfectly all the time, right? But in any case, I'm teaching it to the best of my abilities to my own students because ultimately that is, like I said, that's the direction I think we're all going in. And that is what allows us really to make contribution beyond measure, right? To help, to support, to assist, to serve others. And to me, my role, I always say, my role is to be of service to the light and the agenda of the light. Well, what is the agenda of the light? The agenda of the light is an agenda of expansion, of upliftment, of elevation. Whereas if you look at the agenda of the dark is contraction, constriction, contort, same, stuck, no change, no growth. And there is a real agenda of the dark that is real. So, and then, we can go on about that conversation, but so I mean, I'm doing my best to be of service to light. That means I'm always doing my best to use energy to uplift without interfering with someone's free will choice.
Gosh, I'm so glad I asked that question because what I started noticing when I'm with her is because she's able to channel light language, I assume that she knows better than me, like, right? So then when I start noticing that she would avoid people who are of a lower vibration, and then I go and speak to everybody, I feel like maybe I'm doing something, like I'm probably not, like uh, you start thinking that, okay, I need to do what she's doing because I feel like she's probably better than me. So when you
Yes.
say that, when you don't have to fear low vibrations, or we know, I don't want to call high low, when you don't have to fear that, when you don't have to fear anybody, and you can with your presence elevate their energy. That's so beautiful. I mean, I love that perspective.
See, the thing is what you're sharing about with the example you're using, it's very common. Most energy, she's a light worker. Most light workers, that is a phase you go through. It's very, it's an important part of the phase of growth and evolution, and everyone goes through it. I had those periods too, because at that point, you're not in your mastery of light. You're not holding the light entirely. You're not able to really be the light, so-called light or lightness or the higher vibe. You have it, but you're not in mastery over it, and you haven't yet learned. I'm saying you, but I mean people at this phase, and this is the
Yeah.
vast majority of light workers are still here, where they don't understand that their light can not only uplift, but they don't have to be drained by those around them. So because they're so sensitive, and I've been this way, like highly sensitive beings, we can easily feel drained and depleted by those around us if we don't know how to really build our container and to understand that part of the free will of every sovereign being is to choose the light that we're going to be and to be able to maintain that through our direct connection with source. So yeah, living without fear. I love that you said that, Tanya, because it's like we're meant to live without fear. And that includes fear of energy, fear of another person, fear of what something can do to us. There are tools to use. Like one of them is really that I teach to all of my students is how to really get into the center core of being. That center core of being is where you are at one with the purest frequencies that you can access, where they will continue to replenish you and reinvigorate you and infuse you, so that, and from that place, you are being fueled with source energy. In addition to that, most people kind of do cord cutting. The way they do cord cutting is through the brain. That's not effective. Most people do that, or they call on an angel to cut their cords. It's a great tool. It's not as powerful as they need. So the tools that I use with cord cutting are much more powerful, so that I know that when I'm in someone else's field, and if it is affecting me, I know how to really clear that from my field very quickly.
Can you give us like one way we could do it? Because a lot of people are working in the corporate, and you come across so many people who are going through different things in their personal life. But we have to collaborate with them. We are working on projects together. So if we do come across someone like that, what could we be doing at that moment?
Well, the way that I teach takes at least, like an hour for me to teach. It's very simple, very easy, but requires I have to teach it. That said, there are things you can do. Number one, I mean, I know you can't take a shower every hour, but every night or morning when you take a shower or a bath, when you do it just with intention, you say, I release and, cleanse all energies and frequencies and vibrations that do not match or exceed my frequency of light, just by saying that. And in a shower type. Now, if you can't get in the shower and you're at the workplace, you can actually, if you can go outside anywhere in nature, you don't even have to do it that way. You can do it in your office. It's just that then you're sort of bathing in the frequencies that you're in. It gets a little more challenging for someone who's not, who doesn't know how to change energy. So this is why in the earlier phases, just going out into nature, if you can get to a park and do it there in the same kind of way. Another way is just through breathing through the heart. This is something else I teach, right? The heart has brain matter that is undeveloped, right? And that can be built just like we strengthen our brain, our capacity. So just by breathing through the heart, which a lot of people don't know, that most people are breathing just up here, but really deep breaths and just getting down deep and just dropping into that heart as deep as you can, right? That's something that someone can do relatively easily, with some practice. And from that space in the sacred heart center, they can start just intending that cords and connections are discorded. I mean, I can go on with this, right? But those are some basic, simple practices. practices that people can start. Always, it is learned and practiced and developed through various forms of energy and meditation. But please know, I'm not talking about visualization. That is a tool of the mind, and the mind is limited. When I say the mind, the mental plane is limited. Consciousness is never limited. And consciousness works with the mind and through the mind, but is never limited to the mind. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. When you said that you can, the first thing that you said, you say that I give back any energy thought that does not belong to me. That's something that I started saying after I read your book, this book, it's
Ah,
amazing. Yeah.
oh, good. The secret energy of
This
money. That's awesome. Wow, that
amazing
was
book.
good.
Laurie talks about the different laws in this book as well. So one of the things that I started saying is I started repeating every time I might go into something and I feel like a little off. I would say that, I release it from my field. Anything that does not belong to me, I return it back to whoever started it. Not the exact
I would
words,
even
but
upgrade. I didn't mean to
oh,
interrupt you,
really?
but I would even upgrade that because I wrote that book. Well, it's a great book. I'm glad you. Thank you for that. I'm so glad it's been of service to you. But I would send it to the light now to be forever transformed.
Ah,
I'm sure I didn't know that then, right? Send it to the light. We don't need it on Earth
send it,
anymore. We
send it to
just
the
don't need
light.
it, right?
Okay, I like it. I like
Yeah.
that. They say you send it to the violet flame also, right?
The
The
violet
like,
flame is awesome, right? That is a frequency of light that
mm,
transmutes any density. So you can do that too, for sure. The violet flame, which has been like a frequency of light that has been passed down through generations, right? Most recently and most famously, the being known as Saint Germain is famous for sharing the violet flame. It's in the lineage, Kuan Yin has also, but most of them are. I mean, all of his masters have used the violet flame.
beautiful. So, Laurie, have you looked into your past life? Like, when do you think you would become an ascended master?
I don't know that I've ever been an ascended master in terms of my soul's like journey, but I have a lot of past life, parallel life memories, a lot. Like I know a lot of them. And everyone can start to know their past parallel life memories. They're coded in your DNA. They're also in what's called your Akashic records. The Akashic records are what I would call a sixth dimensional bandwidth. They're just a frequency of energetic consciousness that stores the information of everything that's taken place in the so-called lower realms, which we're part of. And even beyond, to a sense, you can access. But for the most part, anyway, without going into all the Akashic records right now, you can get your past lives easily. They're stored in your consciousness, but they're there for you when they're going to serve you. If a person's not ready to access the wisdom, the consciousness, the learning, the healing or whatever it is from another lifetime, typically they just won't know it because they're not ready yet or because they haven't become attuned to the frequency of what that lifetime experience has to offer. In truth, whatever a soul needs in this lifetime for the basic that is required based on that soul's divine agenda in this lifetime, they're going to be experiencing it like a hamster wheel, the same kind of patterns. It's like we call that the karmic wheel or the looping patterns, right? That show up in our lives over and over again because our soul's agenda wants to resolve those. And that's part of the karmic path, right? And then you have, of course, your dharmic path, which that's the best part. Like as those issues are resolved, you start coming into alignment with your dharmic path. And it's like waves, right? It's not one then the other. It's not linear. But your dharmic path is like your joy, your passion, what you're here to offer, how you're here to serve and contribute. It's the part of you that is the best version of you coming through. It's when the divine starts to reveal itself in you and through you and your greatest expression of you. And you're just going to bring that forward, right? That's your dharmic path. But that kind of can't really fully reveal itself until at least a good chunk of this karmic stuff is addressed, right? And your past lives are linked into that. Make
Hmm.
sense?
Makes sense. You know, when you say karmic, dharmic, you know what's funny? Like all of these terminologies, I think kind of originated in India and those parts, right? But now they don't resonate with it anymore. Like when we talk about karma, dharma, like they don't even understand what it means. And I kind of hear all of these terminologies coming from the US or in Australia, like in the Western world. Is it because all the Indians now incarnated into these parts of the world? Like what's happening? Did we switch? Why don't we resonate with it anymore?
Well, I think, first of all, India is notorious for breeding incredibly progressed, spiritual, advanced teachers and masters,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
And because the higher truth of it is that karma is being cleared from our earth. The truth is, we are being liberated and freed from karma. So when they don't resonate, I would take from that that they understand that we're being freed from karma. Like we really are. But for people who are on the awakening journey now, and I'm not in India, so I don't know that personally, but that's what I'm taking from that, how I'm translating and understanding what you just said. But we are in the West further behind, and those words make sense. In truth, I just use that languaging, but in truth, what it is to me is the soul has an agenda. The soul of every being has an agenda, and that agenda is to clear, heal, and resolve issues that were unresolved from this and other lifetimes, right? You can call it karma. It's an agenda that the soul wants to resolve things. And it's also that the soul wants to really be, on some level, a truer, more authentic, more aligned version with who they truly are, which is an aspect of the source, divine source, the infinite, the all that is, God. And so, whatever that agenda is for each individual soul, that's going to play out. And the words karma, dharma are just, to me, they're kind of universally understood words. So I'll use them. But really, it's about agenda, that what the divine is choosing as an incarnated being in physical form for that unique trajectory, that life path. Make
Makes
sense?
sense. Now we are going through this ascension, right? Like the ascension process. Can you tell us what it means? And like, I see that a lot of the people that I speak to who I never assumed would understand what I'm talking about seem to be resonating with it. Like they're talking about channeling ascension, but we are still talking about it in secret. You know, we go at the pantry of our corporate office and then we're like, do you know what's channeling? And then we're like, yeah, but we don't talk about it because other thing people would think that we're weird and crazy. So it's like a secret thing that we have in the office. But what exactly is happening? Like what stage of evolution are we in, and what could we be doing so that we could make sure that we are in alignment?
Okay. So I want to ask you something. Would you like me to channel through from my collective what they have to say, or do you want me to give? Yeah. Okay. Let's do that. So let me just first define who the collective is. The collective is a group of thousands of beings who I am part of this collective. And some of them are unique to me, my guides, my divine team, and some of them come and go. They're not necessarily unique to me. They'll come when we call forward this group and whoever's needed to respond or to bring through. And the collective consists of ascended masters, divine goddesses, who are also ascended masters, star beings, which is beings from the stars, interdimensional beings. Some of them are sub collectives of what they call the fleet, who are here in service. Some of them can be, sometimes they're animals, animal collectives or sub collectives, planetary bodies, even weather patterns or weather storms can be connected with Mother Earth, of course, plants, mineral. Like there's nobody who can't come into the collective. There's overall, there is always one rule that they all adhere to. They can't come in unless they are of the light, and serve what we call like the one source, right? That infinite source and its plan, which is the agenda of the light. So just so you know who's coming through, and sometimes they'll sub-identify. So just give me a moment. I just need to get out of my left brain and aligned with them. Okay, good. Good. So greetings. Here we are. to share with us today, with all of us today, on this momentous moment. We are truly honored and privileged. And yes, we identify as the collective in this here now moment. And indeed, it is true, we serve the light. So the question you are asking regarding this topic of ascension, let us clarify. For the formal definition of the word, while it is relevant, is not necessarily what is applicable as it relates to the human evolution and the evolution of not only your galaxy, your universe, your cosmos, the multiverses, but the infinite, the all that is expanding infinitely. For you on earth, for your humanity, for all beings living here, and for your cosmos, your universe, what is happening is that all beings are being provided opportunity to choose in a more conscious way, to choose their path, to choose their journey. And so this ascension is simply the opportunity for beings to decide for themselves with their own free will choice whether they will continue to choose to expand, to grow, and to evolve. There are many you see who are not choosing that. They may not be consciously aware that they are not choosing it. Nonetheless, they are. And these beings, if they continue to choose that, will experience different results, different outcomes, different trajectories in the infinite options that are infinitely available. For those who are choosing to expand, evolution will continue in an accelerated pace, in an accelerated way that will provide the opportunity to align more fully with the light, which again is the agenda to allow humanity to freely choose, to allow the multiverses to expand and evolve as well. So ascension is simply the opportunity to choose. Now let us define. Let us define free will and choice, for this is relevant and important to this topic area of evolution and ascension. Your free will choice is comprised of that which you put your attention on, that which you give your energy and life force to, that which you believe and perceive, that which you emote, that which you feel and sense, and that which you align with or align to. You see? So in this game of ascension, overall, the choice, the free will choice, is to choose either a path of the light or choose a path of, we could call it a path of the dark, but we would prefer to clarify a path of stagnation, a path of limitation, a path of contraction. That is simple. That is ascension. Does that make sense?
I'm wondering why would when I first heard about New Earth and Ascension, I felt this urgency to pick that, to pick whatever that is, because I knew that if I didn't, things are gonna get really ugly. And when I have that sort of this yeah, like this urgency, and I want to like tell everybody that you've got to pick it. And I try to talk about it. And when you say that there are people who pick, when you are channeled and they said they pick the other side, the dark, I don't understand why they would do that. What is there in the dark? Why are they not able to pick light? Isn't that the obvious choice?
Yeah, I'm asking if the collective wants to share on this, and I can. Do you want me to do that? Do you want me to go there with them,
Yeah,
or I can
sure.
answer it? Okay, because I can gain from allowing the collective to come through. Right, I can learn too. So here we are again. There are two primary reasons in response to your question. First, there is something for the being involved to gain from their energy field, some form of growth or learning through the experience of contraction. And this is why someone would or might choose the dark. For there is indeed no wrong choice and no wrongness. And even if there is something to gain for them that involves contraction through the experience, that gaining is, while limited, it is a participation in what is identified as the game of duality, the game of contrast. For from that soul's perspective, they are believing and perceiving consciously and unconsciously that the contrast is somehow serving them, that somehow the experience that they are having is somehow serving them. So this is one reason. The second reason someone would choose this is that for their greater purpose, they have not fully awakened, and they are still being coerced or manipulated secretly, most likely, in most cases. So they are being affected energetically in ways that do not serve them in their most benevolent best for their greatest agenda. But because of the manipulation that they have experienced, including various forms of mental manipulation, emotional manipulation, and energetic manipulation, on which we could expand if you would like, because they are somehow being manipulated or deceived, they are not consciously aware that they are mischoosing or choosing the path that they are choosing. And this is why it is becoming more and more obvious for those with eyes to see and ears to hear that the density in your world, the corruption, the manipulation, the secrecy, etc., is being exposed to support and assist those in the latter group to make a more conscious choice. Does this make sense for you? They're saying also that
Yes.
yes. So you said you wanted them to elaborate, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And so we will further elaborate on the manipulation. There are overall several systems in your physical world. This is global. This is not specific or unique to any particular country, state, city, province, region. It is global. And it is beyond global. In fact, it includes other planetary bodies who serve the dark. These beings involved with this are overseeing these systems. Let us explain the systems, for it is global. Monetary systems globally, government systems globally, food and water systems globally, educational systems globally, media systems globally, and technology systems globally. And of course, the one you are likely already aware of is medical institutions and pharmaceutical institutions. So these are all of the major systems of your planet. These systems have been orchestrated by beings who serve the dark. This does not mean that there are good people, good humans. And we use the word good from the perspective of the human perspective, for it is not our perspective. There is no good, there is no bad. But these people who are serving in the systems are not bad or wrong. They are serving through their level of consciousness, their frequency, their vibration, in the ways that they know or are uniquely attuned to. It is the systems and the structures that were set up and are being overseen by a top-down hierarchical patriarchal system that is made up and comprised of beings who are serving the dark at the highest levels and including off-planet. These beings seek to control, dominate, manipulate, and they will use any and all tools at their disposal through the systems to do so. This is simply part of the agenda of the dark, which provides contrast in the game of duality. And there is no wrongness in the game of duality. The only wrongness there is the one aspect that pervades through both the dark and sometimes even the light. And that is the attempt to usurp free will. And when the attempt to usurp one's free will is taking place, this is evil, for it is not permitted, it is not allowed, and yet it exists in the game of duality. And so this is why the agenda of the light is to simply provide and expand on the ability for beings, all beings, to choose freely with conscious free will choice.
With Trump becoming the president of United States of America, how is it going to change? Because it seems like he is saying, he gives this perspective that he's going to stop all of these manipulations and he's going to give us all free will. Is that true, or is this just another facade or another agenda from the dark?
So I'm going to keep this channel going because I'm here, but so are they. So I would rather this come from not my personality self. Indeed, your one known as Trump has been, in a sense, appointed. However, it is also in cooperation with the free will choice of the collective that has resided primarily in the United States. Now, let this be known. There are many, many beings out there who would like to perceive Trump or the other option, which in this point in time and space was your one known as Kamala Harris, would like to see one as good and one as bad, one is right as one is wrong, one is serving good, one is etc. And what we would say is here that they are both serving their egoic free will choice. They are both serving themselves, and each of them have their own unique soul's agenda. And we understand that this is not the big picture of what you are asking, but we must first lay this as a foundational truth, for they serve their egoic structure. They do not serve the light. They do not serve the greater good, and they do not serve necessarily the dark, although they are both to some degree puppets, utilized. Puppets are a human word through this one's filter, utilized by both the dark and the light. They are being utilized now. And this is because they are not in full what you would say authentic sovereignty. They are not in single soul dominion over their own vehicle and consciousness. So they are being utilized. Now, with that stated, each one serves a different aspect of what is identified as the dark agenda. Each one is connected through lineages, through the top-down patriarchal, oligarchical society that we have explained. Each one serves different private and often secret and covert agendas. So it is simply a matter of which agendas will be served. In this case, the one who has been elected, who is known as President Trump, this one will serve much light expansion. And he will serve it in a greater and more accelerated way than the one known as Kamala Harris might have. For example, her role would have been to sustain more of the old systems and structures in place for a longer period of time. This role would have afforded more power to the dark agenda for a longer period of time, but would have provided for a more graceful transition, a slower and less abrupt transition, which would have allowed more people to make shifts more gracefully and slowly while still maintaining power of the dark agenda for a greater period of time. The one known as Trump, who is now your president or president-elect, depending on the languaging you choose, will accelerate, for his desire to help humanity is more pure, more in the sense that his egoic structure wants the reward of knowing that he has up-leveled and changed the old structures more dramatically. So his ego will be greater served by knowing he has made greater change. And so this change will happen in a more accelerated pace, and the light will be able to utilize his vehicle and his consciousness in a more accelerated way. At the same time, this will cause greater disruption in a more accelerated way that is slightly less graceful. You see, the agenda of the light will prevail. There is no question of this. The only question is how gracefully, how accelerated, how expediently it will happen, and how will the human free will choice choose to participate in it or to deny it. And if they choose to continue to deny it, as you, beloved, have already stated, the denial of it will simply lead to greater suffering. For that is a cause and effect relationship that is part of universal law. The willingness to allow it and to make the interchanges required for it will provide for greater ease and benevolence, for that too is part of the agenda of the light.
How would this change the way things are going to evolve in this part of the world where I'm from? I'm in the Middle East and Asia. How would this change for us here?
You are all experiencing great global change. What you will see in the area of the Middle East where you are located is a loosening of the grip of the overmasculinated patriarchy. It has not come easily. It has already begun. You are beginning to see it. More and more liberation and restoration of the balance between the divine feminine and the divine masculine. More and more liberation from the restriction associated with enforced religious practices, religious policies that have dominated to control the beings who have lived in your area of the world. So the liberation that is coming is more equanimity and more equality. And this is good, for it is ultimately part of the plan of lighted creation to restore divine equanimity and divine magnanimity, which allows for balance and harmony to be restored as well. Balance and harmony will restore the equanimity that has been lacking for so long. Now, you can see the extreme distortion in some countries in the Middle East where they are showing and demonstrating the extreme distortions, the extreme lack of equanimity, the extreme lack of balance. But this is simply, again, to reveal the duality between the two, to ultimately restore the equanimity that is being reclaimed. This equanimity will further support the restoration of the divine masculine, the divine feminine, which has been lacking so severely in all of your countries. Your particular area is, as a geographical area, overall, the Middle East is designed to restore this balance by showing the extreme polarity of it. This is not something that happens overnight. It is beginning. You see, referring back to the question on ascension, many beings have been under the false belief or the false projection that this would happen somehow overnight or by a pre-appointed date such as 2012, for example. And what we would say is this will happen in accordance with human free will choice, both conscious and unconscious. So to the degree that humans are ready and willing, the process will happen more expediently. To the degree that they are choosing change, it will happen more expediently. However, they are resisting change. And this is why the dualistic contrast is being exposed to such a great degree. There is one other aspect which has not been mentioned, and that is that the use of false authorities who simply benefit and prosper from the experience of war or fighting or domination, these false authorities are being brought to light as clearly not caring for humanity. And these false authorities are being removed from positions of power and leadership as new authorities who truly do care for the greater good are beginning to rise in power. Again, these are only the earliest signs, and this is more of what is ahead in your region of the planet. Does that make sense? Is that helpful?
Well, did you hear? Can you hear what you
Oh,
said?
yes. This is why I love bringing through the collective. I'm not a trance channel, right? A trance channel, they give up sovereignty over their body. They let another being or collective come through them, and they sort of set themselves aside. They're not part of it. But for me, what I learned over the years, and you actually had asked this earlier, was I learned that I knew I was not willing to do that. In my very earliest years, I used to have a lot of beings come to me and say, "Can you let us speak through you?" And I'd be like, "No, you're not like taking over my body. I don't even know enough about who you are." Like I didn't understand enough yet then, and I wasn't willing to let someone just come into my body. So over the years, it just of my own growth, I kept being told, "You're meant to channel. This is part of your gifts. Why are you not allowing it?" And I was like, well, there has to be a better way, like a newer, something better. So what I started learning, I had this guide come to me for a long time, and he was like this flutter of like luminescent golden yellow light that would just come across my consciousness, sort of like butterfly type wings, and it would just feel so beautiful. And I'd hear, "I am Bartholomew." And I'd be like, in the beginning, I was like, this is so awesome, right? And over time, I'd be like, okay, well, what is the point? Like, who are you? What are you for? And then I really understood I'm here to teach you light and frequency so that you can discern. That was it. That was it. So after that, I started realizing, I can just merge with the consciousness of any light or frequency consciousness and be part and one with them, at one with them, without giving away my sovereign right to my own physicality, my own form, without taking them into my body. I just merge with them. And that's how I started having this collective more and more. I just merge, and more beings would come and go, and whoever I called on, and they just come into the field. And it became they have to match or exceed this frequency of light before I was even willing to allow them to be part of my collective or me to be unified. That's how it started. That's what it was. So the collective isn't in me in a sense. I'm part of them, at one with them, at their frequency, whoever's coming through. Make sense?
The last couple of guests who come on my podcast, they don't do trance channeling. I think trance channeling is like an older thing now, and more like it's becoming like a blended. They call themselves blended consciousness and conscious channeling. Like that seems like the new, like the upgraded version, maybe. And I'm thinking that, when you go into channeling, one of the things when I try to pursue channeling myself. And one of the things that they say is you've got to surrender. So surrender sounds like you've got to do trance channeling, right?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't define it that way, but because I totally get what you're saying. See, the problem with trance channeling, and a lot of really famous trance channelers don't know this, but I can see it. They're not channeling who they think they are. They're getting people or beings who are on the astral plane, who want to have the form in physical, who don't necessarily, so they serve an agenda. Most most trance channelers, I can't say all, but a lot of them, especially including a lot of the famous ones, they're just grabbing or get accessing beings who are representing in some way and saying, let us come through your body so we can use the body to share, and we'll share on whatever topic you want or whatever topic's called on, or within this range. So it's what I call astral realm beings who are not necessarily serving the light. That's why I was never interested in trance channeling. So when you say surrender, you're right. You have to like give up your body to allow that being to come through. You have to give up all aspects of who you are. And it's a surrendering. That's why I disagree with it. I mean, I agree with what you said about it. I don't do that. I align. I allow. Totally different. I align, I allow. Before, in the moments of silence, I'm checking. What is the frequency? Who's here? Which one of the tools that I teach people when they work with me is to see who stands with you. I teach this, it's such a great tool. Who stands with the being? You can, if you learn this practice, you can see. Like right now, if anyone is willing, you can see who stands with me. It's not something that your eyes see, but you will see beings, all kinds of beings of the light who are standing with me, behind me, and they're part of who are working with me in my service and contribution. Now, we all, if you do that, if you learn that tool and you want to look at like a president or some kind of authority, yeah, look who stands with them. It's a good tool of discernment.
You just laughed. Do you know who's like when you say you can see who's with
I
them,
can see
meaning oh, okay. What do you see? Like what came to your
most of
mind
them
right
are
now?
corrupt. There's incredible corruption. The corruption is really deep. Right? And you can't
Okay.
blame. There's no judgment, or it's that was part of the game that we're evolving out of. That game involved like it was an I me mine game. That's what the whole all the egoic structure is, I me mine. So how do you survive in a society that's just like survive, kill or be killed? Like put food on the table. It doesn't matter who you hurt. It doesn't matter who you harm. Get promoted. It doesn't matter. Like that's that old paradigm. And we are breaking free from it through our free will choice. And that choice is, I would like to serve either the greater good with harm to none, right? That's how I started. Most healers and light workers, that's how they're changing. They're saying, I want to serve the greater good. And that's beautiful, right? So many new teachers, spiritual teachers, that's where they're at. They're serving the greater good. And that was most of my professional life as a light worker has been that. And like I said, it's only been, I'd say, the past maybe 7 years or 10 years where I started realizing, no, I can serve even greater than that. I want to serve the light, right? Which is even more than the greater good in the sense, because now it's the choice to serve what is God's will, what is God's plan for humanity, for lighted creation, right? And that's like I said, 7 years of that's not like an overnight thing. That's taken a lot of hard work. But my point is I'm not trying to make these old leaders wrong or bad. They are corrupt. They are, who stands with them is a lot of yuck, right? And it's
Okay.
just, we're becoming more discerning. And as free will choice thinkers, we're getting to say, we want something better for our earth, and we're part of the solution. So we're going to become the best versions of ourselves to choose to serve and support one another, to serve the greater good without harm to ourselves or anyone else to the best of our abilities, knowing that we can't control every aspect and we're not perfect, right? So that's what we're shifting into. And we're seeing so many more amazing leaders and coming through. Most of them are like spiritual teachers or coaches, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs. Those are the new leaders, and new thought leaders, and yeah, spiritual mentors and coaches, etc. So that's how I see this change happening. And I get that there's other agendas, but I'm aware of them, and at the same time I'm like, I'm just not interested in that stuff. That's not part of my path in a sense.
When you say that you are now wanting to serve the light, that's a good perspective because that means that even the dark, I mean, some of the agenda from the dark could probably be, to give polarity and for the growth of people. So, in a way, that might be serving the light too.
In a sense, because the dark and the light in the game of duality always kind of balance each other out. There are beings, especially in the non-physical, who serve the balance. Like a good example of someone who serves the balance is someone who's a diplomat, if they're really truly aligned with serving the balance. In a sense, that's the energy of serving the balance. But there's beings in the higher realms who serve the balance as well, because their idea is, okay, we don't want to get things too destabilized, because then people just go insane. So we just need to let that balance be served. And there's a lot of beings like that too. So, and then, those are basically the factions. You've got people who serve the dark, people who serve the balance, people who serve the light. The vast majority of humans now either serve their ego, serve the egoic structure, I, me, mine. They're not necessarily serving the dark, or they serve the greater good, which is that group is growing. And that's me really good. Now, the idea of the game of polarity can still exist. The problem in the game of polarity is the ones who are serving the dark from the perspective of with harm or detriment to others. That can be eradicated. You can still serve, different agendas of contrast. You're still going to have contrast in this game. So contrast is like, well, what's the difference between a tree and a rose? Or what's the difference between a rose and a daisy? Like, contrast doesn't go away just because we eradicate evil, which is evil is the attempt to usurp free will, right? Just because evil goes away or just because the dark agenda goes away doesn't mean that we lose the game of duality. It's just going to be a new game. Is how can we expand in the light and share from a place of we're still separate. You're you, I'm me. A rose is a rose, a daisy is a daisy. But now, what can we do from here as pioneers and co creators of an entirely new reality that really is in service to the greater good of all? That's how I see our future.
That's a beautiful future, isn't it?
Yeah.
You do also, I read that you do DNA and key code activations. What does it mean? What does activations mean?
Okay, so our DNA, all of the human DNA and animal DNA, up until now, we've primarily been utilizing, not utilizing, we're the active DNA is the first two strands, which are basically your genetics and your ancestry, right? Like the things you inherit. And that I call that those first two strands corrupted, right? Because they're not entirely corrupted. Your beauty is not corrupted. You're beautiful, right? Your genetics. But when we say someone has inherited something like diabetes or cancer, that's not true and organic to who we are. That is where our ancestors were living out of alignment with source. And that misalignment, either through faulty thinking, faulty eating, faulty behaviors, faulty emotions, where they were out of alignment, again, not wrong, just misaligned, that got coded into the DNA. So part of DNA activations is to clear, heal, resolve, and realign the corrupted DNA, which is what has caused all kinds of physical dis-ease, right? The other part is that we have known to science, very, true and real. We have 10 more strands of what they have previously called dormant, right? They didn't even know that those strands were good for anything. They used to call them junk. And those 10 strands are dormant. Those strands are waiting to be activated. Now science is studying them. I mean, there were mass collection efforts going on in 2020 with Q-tips, and I mean there are still mass collection efforts going on. Ancestry and Me is a way to collect DNA. All those kind of DNA programs, trace your ancestors. Those are owned by the CIA, by the way, or different, let's call it three-letter organizations. Okay, because I don't know all of them that own them, but those are collection efforts. So when because why they want to study the DNA, and there's geneticists like Bill Gates, the Gates Foundation, they're trying to study this, and there's agendas to manipulate it, right, which can be done with all kinds of things that we might call it, a needle going in, into the body. So the point is that those 10 dormant strands, though, this is what's more important to understand. They have all your past and parallel lifetime information that you need. They have all the codes that you need to be the best version of you. They have the solutions to your challenges and problems. They have the solutions if you're a person who has, any kind of business, or, you're helping others, how you're meant to help and serve others. They have the solutions that you are uniquely meant to bring through for the world. They have your potential to channel, if that's what you want, all your psychic abilities to come online, all your extrasensory ability, storing it all up there. The activations that I do are designed to help activate and awaken those dormant gifts that are waiting for us to claim once we are ready and willing with our free will. And it's a vibrational attunement. The activation becomes that which attunes the person to the frequencies of light and consciousness, that they're ready so that they can bring forward who they truly are and what they're meant to be and bring through in service. It's your gold. I always say your DNA is your most prized possession.
That sounds like a dream. That sounds like activating the superhuman version of you. And there seems to be a lot of these activations, and like I see many courses of activations, and like I take them and I buy them and all of that. But would there be, like, is there a chance? Do I need discernment for that? Could they activate something bad in you?
Well, it's rare that they can activate something bad. I can't speak to everybody's. Different people do activations and more people do them. Um, you need divine discernment in everything. So, yes, you need divine discernment. But if an activation is done entirely through egoic structure, like the person's just trying to make money and it's all, spiritual capitalism, and there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that. Then, it'll probably do nothing, not much of anything. On the other hand, if it's a person who truly is doing their best to be, they really are an authentic light worker, chances are it's going to do something good. The question is always, how much potency will it have? How effective will it be? And there's a second caveat to this too, because when a person is brand new and they've never done activations before, the energy will start very slowly. Why? If they've not done a lot of work, like inner work, energy work, healing, they're not going to feel that much. They're hanging out in the game of density. And they might be like, nothing really happened. Well, that's just because, think about the first, like a great example is like the Michelangelo, right? The first chip, you can't see the magnificence that's in that marble. Another chip, you still can't see. Now, my DNA activations, I know because I've been doing them for 20 years. And the way I started to learn them was through that first contact experience I had. Wasn't like I was taught them. I just started doing them first for myself, then for my animals. And I was doing them for my animals in Maui. And I was like, how is that dog jumping a 6 foot? Like, how is that happening? Like, I was like, that has got to be the energy I'm doing. And I'd pull over on the side of the road and I'd do it for like horses in a field. I just ask because I was doing telepathic communication with animals. That's where it started. And I'd be like, no way. Like, is it that? So then I started inviting humans, like small groups of humans over to my house in Maui. At first, like 4 or 5 people, and I'd be like, let's just do this and tell me what happens to you. And they'd be like, I wrote my book last night, like that book, or I was up all night, channeling, or light language started. And I didn't even know. Then I started doing it with bigger groups and they would just give me the feedback. So now after like close to 20 years of doing this, I just know it moves energy fast. It's not just like one little chip in the stone marble or in the marble of Michelangelo. It makes a difference. But if a person's in a lot of density, it's going to be slower at first because the way I do it is always as is for their most benevolent best with harm to none. That's how I do it. That's how I do everything. And because I'm working, it's never me. I've just become a fabulous facilitator for the divine to do its work. So I'm just the channel, the translator, the energetic, assister. I'm doing whatever I'm told to do or meant to do from my plane of existence as I'm being guided and led. But it's the divine. The divine's always the healer, or the beings we're working with, ascended masters or whomever, angels, etc. And so to me, it can't do harm. It cannot do harm from my perspective. But I don't know what everybody else is doing. That's what I mean.
You
Yeah.
mentioned about how in the corporate world you had eating issues, and then, or then even activations, you were talking about that as well. I've noticed that ever since these last couple of months started, I seem to be overeating as well. And there's this Like the energies are so high, and I'm not sure what this is happening. Why is this happening? I would like to find out what it is. Is there something that you could give me an advice on? Why is this happening? How can
Yeah.
I deal with it?
Okay. I could channel through for you your own higher self. But even before, I just want to ask you because my brain really wants to know, what is your birthday, if you're willing to say?
5th April
Okay.
1992.
So April. So, okay. First, this is just basic astrology, right? You've got, and as the planets influence us until we get to a frequency of consciousness where they don't. Okay. But most humans were being affected by it. And I can't quite tell without looking at your full chart, but what I was hearing for you and why I went there was that there's a Jupiter position in your chart. Jupiter is all about expansion that's related to your physical body. Now, since your sun sign is in April 12th, is that what you said?
April 5th.
Sorry, April 5th. 5 is the body, 5 is the healer. That's numbers. Let me give you this. I'm going to unpack it for you. The sun sign of April has, from your sun sign right now, your Jupiter sign is in your third house, which is all about, Jupiter's all about expansion, but it just pretty much recently, not too recently, but in the last few months, moved out of your second house, which is Taurus. The second house can be identified as the physical body. It's your resource. First house is I, who am I? Second house is mine. What's mine? Mine can sometimes be the body. So you've had Jupiter moving through that. It's now in your third house, expanding. Sometimes Jupiter can make one eat more. But that said, that's just where my brain was going. Let's channel through for your higher self. Do you want to hear?
Yeah, I would love to.
That's just my personality self, what was coming to me. So let me just ask. Okay, so your higher self is coming in, your highest self. I'm being corrected. Not her highest self, her eternal ever being. This is the aspect of your consciousness, speaking here now, that knows yourself as an individuated being, connected wholly and completely to your source, your God, your creator, and is at the same time a God in and of itself. While it is not the whole of all that is, it is the source that created you as a unique expression of the divine in body. So here, beloved, let it be known now. This eating is related directly to the way you nurture your own self, the way you perceive nurturing, the way you experience nurturing, the way you care for and honor your own self. And it is engaged and operating from both conscious and unconscious aspects within yourself. Many beings on your earthly plane perceive food to be a form of nourishment that is nurturing, that is healing, that is comforting. And this is in part why you have been perceiving yourself to be choosing food in more abundance, in more magnitude than you have in the past. There are other reasons as well. We will share these too, for they will serve others in their knowing. The foods that you are eating are charged with, we're searching for a right word, for almost every word we choose would be charged from your perspective. We're using the word wired up, chemicalized, indoctrinated. They are simply not in their purest form, and they are affecting you. There is one other piece, and this is the most significant. But the second piece we were referring to is that they are making your body respond in such ways that you desire and crave more. They are affecting the physiology. This is the most important, and this is the third way. And this is good for all beings to start to become more and more aware of. The technology interfaces you are experiencing are blocking certain rays of light This is why many of you have awoken to the need for blue light blockers on your technology. And they are reducing the full spectrum or eliminating the full spectrum of light. This is also happening not only with all of your technologies, but it is happening through the chemicals that are released in the skies and other various things happening on your earth plane, also including the mere fact that so many of you are sitting and spending more time indoors. You are not getting enough of the full spectrum of light. When the full spectrum of light is eliminated, the body goes into various forms of decay and attempts to replenish and nurture itself through various ways, which are not ultimately what the body truly needs, nor are they what the being truly needs. What all of you need is more sunlight, and what you have grown in fear of, consciously and unconsciously, is that the rays will somehow harm you or bring detriment to your physicality or prematurely age you. When we say this now, nothing could be further from the truth. That is simply reptilian programming or a form of brainwashing or manipulation of your consciousness. For the truth is, you need the light to survive. You need the full spectrum of light that can only come from the sun or through your direct connection with source. And in the physical form, you need the full spectrum of all the light codes and light rays. So here's what we would suggest to you, beloved, and to all others as well. And that is to receive, accept, and allow more of the light from your sun into your body in ways that feel good for you and to you, and not in ways that feel in contrast to what you believe or perceive, because your beliefs will affect the experience. You see, if you believe that the sun will harm you, it potentially could, and we suggest that you clear and resolve those beliefs. Nonetheless, you need the full spectrum of light. Sitting outside during morning hours or late evening hours are the best hours, best being relative, for you to absorb and receive the full spectrum of light. One does not need, nor is one required, to look at the sun. We would not necessarily advise that, since your reptilian program tells you that this is harmful and detrimental to you. But we would advise you allowing yourself to almost, in a sense, gulp in or take in the full spectrum of light through your physicality. This light will begin to restore you to balance and will in turn eliminate some of the overeating, much of the overeating that you have been experiencing. That's cool.
That's cool.
Your eternal ever being is a very powerful being. Okay, they all are. We all have eternal ever beings. These are sometimes referred to as our oversoul, but it's just very beautiful. And it's like, soul family, so anyway, I could go on. It's really nice energy. Feels really good.
My eternal being sounded a little dominating.
No, that's
No?
not, they're strong, powerful beings, these beings. They're not in the play, they don't placate. They're not going to placate and dance around stuff. They're just like, here's the facts, right? Here's what it is.
Yeah,
They
it
don't
felt like
cater or
that.
coddle to the egoic structure to make us, love them. They just are the frequencies of divine love, divine truth, divine authenticity. Like, they're the purest frequencies there are. It's no, you know what I mean? They're strong.
You
That's
know,
very
when
cool.
when when I think about higher self, I always kind of thought that they must be like dumb. I mean, like, because I think an ascended master is doing, but my higher self, like, how good can they be? Because I'm just like, whatever. But then I started channeling this higher self, or I don't know, like, I tried to practice that, and the information that comes through is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
So
Your
what's a
higher
higher
self,
self?
you always have a more higher self. Let me get this clear, right? The higher self is the version of the self. And I mean, different people can define it different ways. So I'm not trying, take what serves you, of course. But
That's
as I
okay.
learned it,
Yeah.
your higher self is always you are your higher self. Every time you up level, your higher self integrates into you. And then there's another higher self aspect of you that is more, it's got the visionary perspective. It sees through time and space. It sees the direction your personality self wants to go. It sees and knows, not just sees with eyes, but like through consciousness knows, the soul that's an eternal being that I'm part of and is connected to. We're all, it's like the triad of you in a sense. It's like, oh, we've got to resolve these things or address these things, but she wants to do, her personality self wants to do these things. This is the direction she's choosing to go in. Let me give her the guidance, the best guidance I can give her from this vantage point, because I can see I'm connected to her in physical form, but I'm also beyond the physicality of her form. So I can see and perceive and have awareness beyond physicality throughout, time and space, to help guide and lead her and support her in accordance with not only what her personality self wants, but also with that which she is pre-chosen, pre-incarnation to address and resolve or to become, right? So that higher self aspect's always giving you that. Now, the moment you level up to that frequency, there's more higher self. It's always part of you. It's always part of you, and it's always aspect of your consciousness that is beyond the perspective where your consciousness is at any given now time moment. Does that make sense?
Mm. Yeah, that makes
And that
sense.
higher self is brilliant. They're always brilliant because when you're connecting with your higher self, because that part of you comes through and you're like, oh my God, this is so good. I couldn't make it up. Like that's how my stuff is all the time. I'm like, oh my God, this is so good. I can't even make this stuff up. Like, and sometimes like I know when I'm coaching or mentoring people and they're struggling, because one of my really great gifts is that I can see their blocks, but I always know this is the truth. I'm working with a God in a body. Like I never forget we're brilliant, magnificent beings with infinite potential. So seeing their blocks, their limitations is like if I'm working with somebody and I'm maybe calling on their higher self to help them or their divine team or doing some kind of work, I'm always so astounded at what comes through. I'm like, this isn't my personality self that's getting this. This is a higher self aspect of the magnificence of who I am that just truly wants to serve and support and assist them in the best ways I can. That's bringing that through for them, right? That's how you know you're working with a higher self, because you're like, it's so good. It's so good. You're like in awe of your own self. You're like, this is so
Yeah.
good. You know? That's the joy, because the fastest road to joy is through real service and contribution. Like
True.
I'm really helping, like that makes me so happy. When my people have breakthroughs, like people in my mentorship, when they have a breakthrough, I'm like, that makes me so happy. It's their breakthrough. I walk away. It's nothing. You know what I mean? I'm so happy for them. So happy that I'm able to serve, right?
And we can see that, Lori, in your face and your excitement, the way you talk about it, the way you express it. You're like, you have this amazing energy, the way we know that you truly enjoy what you do. Like, I know for sure you truly enjoy what you do. You see everything in a very magical way because the way you see things, your perspective is just so different from most of the people around the world, right? It's
Oh, thank you for
beautiful.
saying that. It has been hard work, right? It's not
Yeah.
always like there's been a lot of clearing and a lot of, you know, along the journey, there were lots of traumas and triggers and upsets and setbacks. And I think that's the life of being human, you know? Like there's not a person out there on the planet right now who's not having some kind of triggers and upsets and things that challenge us to grow. And in all of those, we become more of the light that we are. So, yeah, but thank you for noticing and thank you for saying that.
Laurie, I wanted to ask you so many more questions because we've not dived into your near death, or like you called it another terminology, right?
For,
The experience.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
the first contact experience is what I call that, or
First,
the or death.
oh,
Yeah,
right. The first
two
contact
separate experiences.
experience. First, yeah, that the contact experience, the DMT activation. I wanted to dive into that. Your trauma release. We've not had enough time to do it, and I hope you would say yes to coming back on the show again and
Oh, it'd be
dive
my
in
honor.
deeper into that. Oh, that's
Yeah,
beautiful.
my honor.
I would. I usually end the podcast with something called a cosmic close, where I ask two questions, which is inspired by Rupert Spira. The first question to you is, how may we be free of suffering and enjoy eternal happiness?
Choose every day. Choose. You're not going to be able to be free of it initially, but the path of choosing will allow it to start to manifest and materialize in your form, in your physical world. So you have to choose it. And to answer that question, really, to breathe in the energy, to become the energy that you want to be, to more and more fully understand how energy works so that you can be the energy that you would like to be through choice. Really, you can be free of it as you clear, heal, and resolve the parts that are not liberated. It's through a path of self-liberation, right? And through that path of self-liberation and choosing it and becoming it and being it, you can eventually get to yourself to a point where you can be it regardless of what's going on in the external world. Because as you learn how to utilize energy, you can be the energy that is free of suffering, and the external world, it doesn't have to affect you in that way. At least what I can say is, because we're all connected, it's still to some degree going to affect you because you live in physical form. You're aware of it, it's upsetting, and yet you can be the energy that is free of that, that feels so blissful and ecstatic as you learn how to use energy and become that and be it. And it does, again, I just want to say, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means that you're part of the solution. You become part of the solution on earth.
Do you, when there is another second question, but before I dive into that, if you had to rate yourself on, how happy you are now compared to how you were during your corporate life on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your level of happiness?
I love that. When I was living in corporate America, I would say it was a 1 or a 2, like meaning lowest. I remember a point. I remember a point sitting in the car and saying, I don't want to kill myself, but I just want to get out of here. There's no way out. I don't know what to do anymore. And that's when I started, praying. I just didn't have any other option. So back then, that was bad. I was unhappy. I felt, yeah, hopeless and helpless. Now I would say it's an 8, 8.5. I think it could improve. I think that the reason for me it's an 8 or an 8.5 is because of not to make it about geographics, but I know I'm not in my right place. I'm in the process of moving, relocating. And not that my happiness or joy will be found there, but there are some specific things that will enhance my overall fulfillment in the physical world that are connected to location. So I think that will improve as well. But I think it's all based on the internals, really, so I hope that answers that.
Yeah, that does. Just wanted to know, how happy are you? You know, I mean, at the end of the day, everybody who comes on the podcast or who I come across, I would want everyone to be happy, right? What makes you, what gives you joy? What makes you happy? So just curious about that. My second question is, what do you think is the nature of our reality?
Oh, I almost want to channel this through. Such a good question. Overall, the nature of our reality is consciousness. Consciousness is all that is. All consciousness, this is my own eternal, my highest self. All consciousness is made up of everything in your reality, and this reality is energy and vibration. All energy and vibration is made up of consciousness. Consciousness, when it is at its purest state, is divine intelligence, intelligent consciousness. And ultimately, that is all that is. They're saying stop there. That's the fastest and most specific and direct. You could elaborate, but don't. That's what they're telling me.
They're awesome. I love it. Laurie, I loved speaking with you, and I'm sure that this conversation would bring peace and expanded consciousness, love, and joy to everyone who would watch this episode. Now, we know that you're also doing a lot to help humanity. So, where can we find you, Laurie?
Yeah. Oh, well, people can always find me at my website. It's my name, LoriSpagna.com, LoriSpagna. They can find me. I can give them some free gifts. If people would like to have their DNA activated and learn about how to activate your DNA and why it's important, they can go to LoriSpagna.com/free gifts/DNA. If they want to learn more about developing their extrasensory abilities and their psychic gifts and learning to communicate with animals, they can go and help animals. They can go to LoriSpagna.com/free gifts/animals. And oh, there's a lot more. If they want, that's a good place. Those are good ones to start at. They'll get more from there. Um, and they can also tune into my podcast, which is just starting, but it's the Awakened Elevated Human. I'm at my 40th episode, just starting
Oh,
that one. So
wow.
yeah, the Awakened Elevated
Congratulations.
Human. Yeah, thanks. I'm excited about it. And yeah, of course I have, all the social media. I'm out there. People can find me there as well. So I love to hear from people. Love to stay in touch.
Beautiful. All of the links mentioned would be mentioned in the show notes, so feel free to go check that out. We would write it all there. And Laurie, you are such a good speaker. Even when you're not channeling, you are so inspiring, full of joy, full of energy. I absolutely loved speaking with you. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Laurie, and I hope we speak again. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been my honor and pleasure.